Welcome back to the channel. I'm Tom Quigley, bringing the latest tips, tricks and techniques for your contemporary painting and drawing needs. Welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be based on artist research. So it's going to be covering a number of things really, to be honest. One of them being the presentation of artist research, because that's really important. Secondly, we'll touch on a little bit of the annotation, what you need to write in your artist research. And then we'll also discuss about what we're going to take from the artist research and bring further into the topic, whether you like aspects of the artist's work and then you want to manipulate that and bring that into your own work. So we're going to be discussing quite a few things. This particular artist goes by the name of Val Britton. She's an artist that deals with landforms and maps. Her work is actually to do with the longing of her late father, who was a truck driver. And so her artwork is almost seeing these connections of landforms where she imagined her father used to take these routes, and then she uses a lot of geometrical lines to connect all these things together. We're going to be looking at a number of techniques and processes today, and the material of choice for the main and majority part of it is one called Brusho Inks. Now, some of you might have heard of this, some of you haven't got a clue what I'm on about, so I'm just going to give you a brief description about what it is. Now, Brusho Inks, you normally get them in a pack of 12 or 24. They're a selection of really vibrant colours and they come in powdered form. Now, this has its benefits and also its drawbacks. You've just got to be careful that you don't use too much, because once it's gone, and it does cost quite a bit of money for just a small amount. But secondly, you can kind of change the ratio between the ink and the water, and so you can get really powerful inks, where sometimes if you get the diluted inks directly from the bottle, you can't really do that. You're stuck with what you have. All you can do is dilute it. So that is the material of choice today. We're also going to be looking at combining it with maybe cling film. We're also going to be looking at adding a bit of salt to it in there. We're going to scrunch it up as well. I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, it's quite a fun one. It's a messy one. You can see my hands. They are absolutely a mess. The only way I'm going to get this off is probably some bleach, but hey, I'm not really seeing anyone at the moment, so I'll just keep them on there for now. Anyway, I have talked way too much. Let's get on with the video. Okay, so we're ready to start, and the first thing that I want you to do is just get some masking tape and put them round the page. The reason why I do that, if you're using anything that's watery, such as inks, diluted acrylic, then it just saves it going right through the middle of the page and then ruin all your other pages. It also looks really nice and neat and tidy. Now, what you'll see the first colour I'm decided to use is a purple. Now, the reason why I'm using a purple is that I looked at Val Britton's page and I decided which one I liked the most. So if you have a look at the artist's work, pick which colour you really like. You don't have to use purple like me. Now, what I've decided with the purple, it's a little bit too intense, so I've decided to add an opposite colour. Remember, if you add an opposite colour to something on the colour wheel, it kills it a little bit more and makes it a little bit more earthy tone. So I've had a go at doing that, and I've also diluted it a little bit further as well, because it was a little bit too intense. So I've got my diluted purple, and I've also got a dark brown. If you look at Val Britton's work, she tends to use these earthy colours combined with these really lovely, vibrant colours as well. So I want them to naturally blend into each other. Now, I'm just using a standard sponge for this one. It's easy to use and it's also quite fun. And what I'm going to be doing first of all is just putting some drips on there. You can also tilt your book if you want the ink to flow certain ways over the page. I'm just watering it down, placing it in certain areas, almost letting the ink do what it wants to do, to be honest. I'm not trying to be too forceful with it. Now, as you see, I'm starting to blend that brown in with the purple and then going on to the other page. So it almost looks like one page is flowing into the other one. That is always a nice thing to see. The next thing I'm doing is adding some salt. Not going crazy with it, but just adding it in the areas where it is quite wet still, and then you've just got to leave it to dry. Now, there is some puddles there, and I think they're a little bit too much. It'll take ages to dry, so I'm just soaking them up with some kitchen towel on that one. Now, what we're going to do now, I'm just going to use some ultramarine blue and also some turquoise, because I want more of a pungent colour. So this one is still diluted, but it's just a little bit stronger. And in fact, I'm going to add a little bit of black in there as well. Just working back into it there, just so I've got some different tones, and then I'm going to scrunch it up. Now this is where your hands are going to get a little bit messy, but it's all fun doing art. So what you're going to do now, we're going to open it up, and what you can see is all those creases and lines. They almost look like lines from a map or lines that Val Britton does, so I thought it looked quite nice. Now it is best if you dry this organically, so just put it on a drying rack or wherever you can place it, and then just come back to it. What I actually did, I dried it pretty quickly and it didn't get the best outcome. Another one, I've just using some brown paper. Now this is quite thick. If you can use some sugar paper, that's going to be your best alternative. The ink is going to absorb into the paper a lot better, and if you see how I folded the piece of paper, it was just in random ways really, to be honest. It's just a little bit more structured rather than scrunching up completely. And what I've done here now, I've just opened it up, and you can see those creases creating those connection lines, which again is like Val Britton's work. Now this is a trick, this is quite cool. If you look at the colour inside there, which is leaf green, it's actually orange. And I got stumbled every time I use it, and then it comes out green. Unbelievable, it gets students every single time. So I'm not too sure why that's yellow and comes out green, but on this one, I'm just doing a very, very simple wash. I might use it on an artist response or later on. Here, I've just added a little bit more water in there. I'm going to add an orange with a little bit of red also, maybe a little bit yellow, just kind of, it's going to be a quite intense colour. And this one's for the cling film technique. And in the cling film technique, basically, you've just got to make sure that your ink underneath is very, very wet. Otherwise, you're not going to get the effect that's needed. Now, what I will say is leave it to dry naturally. That's where you're going to get your best results. Now, let's go back to the sketchbook. What I'm looking at here, just want to make sure the background is completely dry. Just going to take off that masking tape, having a look and see if there's any areas that I wanted to have any other areas of washes where I think I'm fine. I'm also happy that I've got some white areas on there for my title. Also, you can see that I've got the salt, which has appeared quite nicely. Now, we're going to come back to the piece of paper that I did before. Now, as you can see, mine's come out okay. I wish it came out a little bit better, but hey, it's not too bad. Some elements have come out in lines, which are quite nice. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to get an area of a map. You can maybe look at Val Britton's work if you want to. Just for this, you'll maybe need a craft knife, pair of scissors and a pencil. Maybe also use a pen if you can't see your lines very clearly, which I started with a pencil on here and realised I just couldn't see them for when I was cutting them out. So the shape that I'm actually drawing, I am actually using my imagination. I'm taking elements of Val Britton's work, but feel free to copy a certain section of her work, or maybe choose another area of a map if you so wish. So I've gone over in pen to make it a little bit easier, and then I'm just going to spend a bit of time cutting it out. Now, if you're struggling with the scissors, or maybe you want to get a really lovely refined piece of collage, then use that craft knife. You can actually do some negative space and cut out some areas. On this piece that I've just shown you there, that black piece of paper, it's actually black ink. I didn't have any black paper, but if you have got some, I know Val Britton uses some really contrast between dark and light and uses some black paper. Now, what you're going to do once you've cut out 3 pieces of collage, here I've just showed you this one here. It looks a bit like a fried egg. Just be aware, try and make it look really intricate when you're doing it. So I've got my second piece there, and I've got my third piece. This one I'm actually going to split in between the middle. It looks quite attractive. Remember, it's a double page. Try and make it as one, and then it's just got a little bit more flow to the page. Now, I'm using some PVA glue. It's okay using it. You might have to close your book, put a couple of books on top, but Pritt Stick seems to work pretty much fine, to be honest. So whatever you've got, then use that. So I'll just make sure I'm doing that. And then, as I say, make sure you don't glue them down until you're happy where you're placing them. So I'm just closing that there, put a couple of books on the top, stay there for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, and then have a look and see what the result is like. If they're still peeling up a little bit more, maybe just add a little bit more glue. So now I'm trying to think where to place my title. I'm looking at areas maybe where there's empty spaces. I could maybe put Val and Britton at the top and the bottom, which sounds a good idea to me. Anyway, until I do that, I want you to think about your lettering. It's very important that it's clear and it's well presented. Now, there should be no excuse if you struggle with your lettering. For example, just use a stencil if you feel like it's not neat enough. Very simple, very easy, and still looks like very high standard. The second way of doing it is just putting 3 lines down Top, middle and bottom. So your high letters go right up to the top, or your capital letters, and then you just stay at one other level for your other letters. And all I'm doing here when doing the lettering, very, very simple. I'm just doubling up the straight line. So every time there's a vertical line or one that's going downwards, I'm just doubling it up. And you can go over that with a biro pen or fine liner, and it's going to look really attractive, and it's really simple to do. The third one, if you want to really stretch the boat out and be thinking, how can I get the text looking really like the artwork and, make it look amazing and, that level 9 standard, then you're going to have to be a little bit more adventurous within your lettering. So first of all, I'm going to do is just do some standard block lettering. And then I'm going to think to myself, what is Val Britton's artwork all about? It's about geometrical lines, overlapping, crossing. And so that's what I've started to do with the letters. Started to bring them together, combining them, adding areas of maps into them also. And then we've got some contrast between dark and light, so I might shade in some areas. So again, it's up to you when you're doing this. You don't have to copy me. Try and think about how you would do it. And I've decided to put a first name at the top and then a second name at the bottom. You can separate them. It just makes the page, again, look as exciting as possible. Now, I've added the darker areas. I don't know if you can see there. So I've got a few other areas on there. I will be adding a few areas later on as well, because I feel like it needs some more vibrant bits and bobs on there. So let's get started on these letters and make them look really, really nice. Okay, so I've blocked in the letters, and what I've noticed, I've covered the two T's with a bit of collage. One way of counteracting that is maybe using the opposite colour. So I've added a white gel pen and a correction pen. It went a little bit messy, so I had to refine it even further. But it was just quite a nice thing to do. If you've got a dark surface, maybe use something lighter and then block out the letters in black. If it's on a white surface, you've got that nice contrast between the letters. Now, as I'm working back into there, with the correction pen and the white gel pen, I also need to block in the other letters. And instead of using a biro, I used a fine liner. And it seemed to work quite well. Just working out which areas I wanted to block in and other areas to leave out. It's just so it stands forward, so you've got the name in bold, really, to be honest. Now, after that, what I needed to do was think about, in her work, she has a lot of these land formations and a lot of lines connecting towards them. I thought, how could I do that instead of just drawing? So I used some of the scrap pieces of paper. Here is that black piece of paper that I created with the black ink. Let it dry, and then I'm just going to use a craft knife and a ruler and make sure the lines are really thin and straight. Try and don't do them really bulky. If you do, it's going to ruin it, so you've got to do them really, really thin. Do those a number of times, and then choose a Pritt stick and then glue them from one section to another, and try and be inventive how you're doing this. You remember, look at her artist work, look how she does it, and also take some knowledge from that, because what the examiner's going to do is going to basically judge you on how your ability of looking at the artwork and trying to recreate it. So I'm just going to add a few more onto there. And then I'm just thinking, she just seems to do these triangles. So I'm going to have a go at doing that one. I'm also using the white gel pen over the top of the collage piece of paper, which works quite nicely. So combining thick and thin lines together. Here I'm actually doing multiple lines, so it looks really intricate, but to be honest, it's really simple. Almost looks like it's an airport going to many different destinations, which I quite like within the work. Now, you may think to yourself, you've got no artist images on there. The reason being, I haven't got any with me, but this is what you could do. Now, you could actually stick them in certain sections, cut around the artwork and put them on there, or actually put a little thing in the middle and stick the images on either side. Or you could use it for writing if you wanted to. That was just using a hole punch and some string. So it's something to consider in the future if you wanted to. Now, I'm actually going to do a little bit of writing in the background here. Now, I'm not going to do a full bit of writing. I'm just going to talk about it. But you can see I'm using my ruler at 1 centimetre intervals. That's so the writing just looks interesting. I also can write around some of the shapes. So it's going to look a little bit more organic. It's not going to look too staged, and it's almost going to fit in with the artwork. So that's the best thing we want to do. We don't want to detract from all the hard work that you've just been doing. Now let's talk about the writing. There's a number of things that you need to consider when the writing. You will also see that I've written the keywords already on there, like silhouettes, destinations, maps, journeys. They're all important to show that your understanding of what the artwork's about. So make sure you've got some keywords on there. The second thing that I want you to consider within the artwork is almost a brief description of the artist. Who is she? What's her education? Where is she brought up? What materials does she use? What kind of artist is she? That's going to be an important thing. Don't be putting about how many dogs or cats has she got. It's got to be relevant information for the artwork, remember. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in part 2, so you can talk about a little bit further about bringing elements of the artwork forward. Well, that's it, guys, for the part 1, looking at artist research. Hopefully you found it interesting. Hopefully you found it informative. Part 2 will be coming very, very soon, where I take those techniques and processes and then try and make them a little bit more personal within your own work. If you want to keep up to date when I'm next uploading, or my other social media, or my own artwork for that matter, then please follow my Instagram page and my Facebook. The reason why I say that is that I can't show any stories on my YouTube until I reach 10,000 subscribers. So I just can't do it. So if you want to keep up to date with any of the bits and bobs I'm doing, then please follow those other platforms. As I say, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. It's always lovely to see. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. I know recently, over the last 2 weeks, a lot of you have recently subscribed, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And hopefully you're enjoying the videos. So I'll leave it there, and until next video, guys, I'll see you later. Bye.